hotter the conflict, the greater the triumph.
A theistic serpent may be overcome by a swarm of ants.
Lead me, follow me, or get out of my way. Age wrinkles the body, quitting wrinkles the soul.
Battle buddies.
Battle buddies.
Brothers will fight and kill each other. Sisters' children will defile kinship. It is harsh in the world. Whoredom rife. An axe age. A sword age. Shields are riven. A wind age. A wolf age. Before the world goes headlong, no man will have mercy on another. The sun turns black. Earth sinks in the sea. The hot stars down from heaven are whirled. Fierce grows the stream and the life-feeding flames, till fire leaps high above heaven itself.
That's metal.
It's intense.
That's very metal.
Yeah.
That feels like after you hear that, some band comes out with long hair and just starts riffing and you hear some drums. Right?
Absolutely.
A wolf age?
A wolf age.
What's a wolf age?
We're going to talk all about wolf ages.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
That's tight.
Wolves are going to play a key
Are they like
feature.
dogs?
No. Could not be more different in terms
Not
of...
domesticated.
They're
These
not.
wolves are not. But are they companions?
Wolves, no. Wolves are the harbingers of the
Sad.
end of the world.
Oh, I was way off.
Yeah, so I was way off on this one. Wolves absolutely are also going to be allies as well as harbingers of the doom and the Ragnarok. We're going to get into it in our next episode when we start talking about the berserkers. But very much a thing. I was very much wrong. Love learning.
This is
Not hanging out with wolves. All right.
This is a description of Ragnarok, or as you may have heard, Ragnarok, which we're going to come back to in just a minute.
Hell yeah. Welcome to Battle Buddies. We're going into fucking Vikings now, dude.
Vikings.
Welcome to Battle Buddies. This is your history podcast for people who don't necessarily like to read.
Yeah, we're taking the complicated and we're making it digestible.
I encourage you not to read and just listen to us instead.
I encourage you to read.
No. Don't read. We'll read for you.
Sure.
Don't ever read.
Sometimes. I can't do the joke.
Read our descriptions of our podcast.
All right. So this series is kind of like our standard ancient stuff that I've been doing a little bit of over the past couple years, but the format is going to be different, and I think it's going to be our next level in our evolution,
Oh.
which is that when we're talking about these different societies, and especially as Spencer and I have started to play with venturing into civilizations that maybe aren't English-speaking civilizations or that we don't have that much background in, it's not common in our friend group, like zeitgeist kind of stuff. How do we supply context to understand them, right? How do I make sure that I do them justice? And the answer, I think, lies in what my training has been in, my education, I guess, which is English and literature. So the idea here is that to supply context for these different peoples, I'm going to break them into 3 parts. So the first part is what you're listening to today, which is myths. So we're going over the mythology, the cosmology of the group of these people. Then on part 2, we go into the legends of these people. And part 3, we go into one of their battles. That way, when we get to the battle, you will understand what makes that culture tick. Because Spencer and I have talked a lot about, not glorifying historical figures, not judging historical figures and leaders and peoples by our modern values. But if we need to judge them, we try to judge them within the context of their society in their time period. But I have been thinking about that, and I think that's the right approach. But I don't know if any history podcasts or any of these groups that are trying to do this kind of thing are supplying enough context to do that. So that's kind of my goal here is I'm not a historian, and I don't see historians doing this part a lot. And so I thought it'd be kind of fun and something different to do.
Yeah, I believe I started out the Megiddo episode also explaining context.
And that was really good.
Thank you. But I do think that that's kind of the name of the game when it comes to storytelling and
Yep.
historicity, as we're now in like this.
Ooh.
That's the whole thing right
Yep.
now, right?
Right.
Historicity of things, all that. As we turn the corner into all of that, I think the name of the game is context.
Absolutely.
That's what all of this is. And there's a fellow history podcast called Game Changing History. He's based out of, I think, Norway.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Yeah, he
He's
follows
cool.
us on X and stuff
Yeah, he's
like
very
that.
nice.
But he gets in conversations with Dan Carlin all the time
Right.
because he's like obsessive about context. And Dan
Yes.
Carlin's like, that's why it takes so long.
Yep.
I have to figure out how to, I'm going to be doing the Cold War pretty soon here. I have to
Mhm.
figure out how to explain so many years in about a couple sentences.
Yep. And I would say, out of all the societies I've ever tried to study through like a military history lens, Vikings are the most appropriate for this.
Really?
Approach. It could not be it when you're reading military history, as we've done so much in the past like couple years. Sometimes they go into a little bit of mythology. You cannot separate it from the Vikings. It is interwoven. It is baked in. It can't be more crucial to understanding them. The fact that some of these books that we'll talk about in a second, they all have to reference the Norse mythology extensively to give any amount of context for anything.
Wow. And so what was the impetus for you wanting to study specifically Vikings, myths, legends, and battles?
I think it actually started with our Caesar series.
Hmm.
And when we were reading Caesar's commentary on Gaul and we met the Germans for the first time, and I wanted to go back to them. Then the other thing that happened last year is I finally finished Tolkien's Silmarillion, which if you've never read that, I don't blame you. It's very hard. It took me 3 tries and the Prancing Pony podcast to get through it.
Shout out to Prancing Pony podcast.
Fantastic stuff. And so I finally got through it. And he borrows a lot from Norse mythology, specifically the text that we're going to use as like one of our primary texts. So,
okay,
that's the main reason.
Roger that. Context, folks.
So today is part 1. Part 1 is about the myths. And the Viking mythology and cosmology is very interesting. So I titled this episode, "The End of the World is Just the Beginning."
It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel slightly kind of actually mundane about the whole thing.
Yeah, our world ending is not as...
Except it would be instantaneous. I don't know if I would feel it.
1,000 years from now, it'll be fun because they can compress it all, but we have to live through it in real time, which is always the issue.
Yes, all things are relative.
Yep. Okay, so that quote that we read in the beginning, that is Ragnarok. That is in the Norse mythology, the end of the world ending. Now, our myth today is not going to be Ragnarok, but I wanted to go over it, as will be made clear in just a little bit. Looking back to that quote, the first one that we read about, brother killing brother. This is Ragnarok. Ragnarok, I'm not going to go through all of it. It's wild. All of the Norse mythology is wild. It makes it really fun. But all these gods are going to start fighting. There's going to be some wolves released, and they're going to eat the sun, and they're going to eat Odin, who we'll meet in a little bit. And it's just this epic fight. And what's going to happen for you and I, the everyday people, is the world's going to get dark. There's going to be multiple years of no sunshine, and we're going to fucking kill each other. I mean, horrible. The world will also literally end from this. Now, the reason why I want to start with Ragnarok, and we'll come back to it in just a second, I want to go over a little bit of the history of it.
Oh, did you read that shit?
Yeah. Is understanding what the Vikings are and what they are not. Now, this is complicated.
Yeah, lots of arrows. Lots of ins and outs and lots of what have yous.
Very complicated
If you're
stuff.
watching this on Spotify or YouTube, there's a video. Open this because we're seeing lots of arrows.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And we're not going to get into all of it. It's very complicated. So basically, after we met the Germans in Caesar's commentary on Gaul,
Mm-hmm.
Around a couple hundred years later, the Western Roman Empire is going to fall, which is a whole thing. It's very interesting. Dan Carlin kind of describes it as like the birth of Christianity destroyed Rome. Like Rome birthing Christianity was its demise, which is just like a fascinating image to have.
I believe Tom Holland also has a book about that called Dominion.
I think he
Mhm.
references Tom Holland because he likes Tom Holland's work. So that would
I
be.
need to read that.
Yeah. And the idea is that's like a part of it, right? Rome falling. But the other part is that the Huns, like steppe stuff is happening and horsemen are coming in and they are crashing into these Germans and these Gallic peoples, which is causing mass migrations. Okay. People are moving around.
I wrote my entire final paper on that to get my bachelor's degree. And
Oh, really?
Yeah. How war affects essentially
So this
immigration.
and this is a big deal. I'm not going to get into it because you have to know like your difference between your Visigoths and your Ostrogoths and all that shit. And I actually don't think this is the biggest reason why the Vikings were born. The bigger reason, I think, is that in 536, we think the world fucking ended.
Really? 536?
536. 536, what we think happened, what some people think happened, what I'm believing currently until better information is given to me.
Oh, are we getting Alex Jones already on this? Let's go.
There were 3 volcanoes. One of them, I'm based on Children of Ash and Elm, definitely sounds like it was in El Salvador.
Really?
3 volcanoes, probably like in the Americas, went off in the same year from the end of 535 to 536. These volcanoes then covered northern Europe, like the northwest of Europe, where these German people are running around and migrating because everything's going crazy, for 3 years, blocking out essentially the sun. Now, Scandinavian countries, very little farmland percentage-wise, right? In these very northern tips of Europe, there's not a lot of farmland. And so, if you lose most of it, there wasn't a lot to begin with. Your people are going to be migrating a lot fucking harder.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're also going to be decentralized.
Mm-hmm.
We already knew about these German people from Caesar's commentaries that they were in these tribes, right? And the tribes had these buffer dead zones between the other tribes, and we talked a lot about how interesting that was.
Mm-hmm.
So they are already fairly decentralized. They kind of start grouping up so that they can survive the early migrations against the Huns and the Romans. Then this happens, totally decentralized again.
So I think we got into this in your Caesar series, which if you haven't listened to, please go back and listen. That's one of
That was fun. That was so much
hell
fun.
yeah. But would it be fair and appropriate to say then that these are not city states? This is tribal. We're back in tribe land here.
It all comes to your definitions of this shit, which is very hard. We're gonna go probably around this time period. I'm saying it's so decentralized, I have no idea what it looks like. I think city states is a good idea, but I think it's literally like family states, like your estate. Like your family hill.
Like Capulet and like Montague shit?
Yes. I think that, I gained a little bit of power, or maybe I have access to something that gives me a little bit of food, and then I get like 2 families to work with me. And then so that's my quote unquote city state. I don't have a lot of evidence for that. That's just when I'm looking at it and listening and reading, that's what it sounds like to me.
Okay. Like
Crazy time
some
period.
like old-timey mafia shit.
Yes. So we're in the 500s when this happens. Now, the reason why we started there is going back to Ragnarok. Ragnarok is the end of the world. But you can see the similarities there. Ragnarok is 3 years before the world is completely destroyed and has to be reborn. This thing that we think happened in 536 lasted for 3 years. It's called the worst. 536 is called the worst year to ever be a human, like to ever be alive, because nobody had a good time. So
Really?
I think this Ragnarok story, which is the end of the world, is actually the birth of this new form of Scandinavian culture. Like it's the reworking of their mythology. So instead of like Christianity, which followed a linear path, and then later on somebody started creating what they think is going to happen at the end of the world, right? The Exodus, or not Exodus. What do you call
This would be the Revelation.
the Revelation?
Yeah, so John saw a prophetic dream, and that's why we wrote
Right.
the book of Revelation, and this would be...
I think Norse mythology is written in reverse. I think it starts with the end of the world because they had to
Interesting.
understand what happened, so they built it into maybe this is like a cyclical
Wow.
weird thing, right?
So that's hella cool.
So that's kind of like where I'm at with this. I've heard some other historians allude to that, but not like fully commit because they're historians and they can't do that kind of stuff.
So it doesn't necessarily have to happen every 3 years, but that's how long the battle lasts.
Yes.
Would we have any evidence of that happening post 536 that they would be able to call another Ragnarok? Am I phrasing that question properly?
I think
If it is indeed cyclical, like you say.
right. No, they have not seen the Ragnarok happen again. But I don't even think they would know it as the birth of their culture. I just think that they're all decentralized. They start telling these stories as they move past 536.
This is how they're making sense of the
They're
world.
making sense of the world, and they're kind of reminding each other that this could all fall apart really fast. And when it falls apart, it's not going to be good. And so I think you're getting hints at how bad it was, brother against brother. All women are literally whores because of how bad it is and the amount of sexual violence they're exposed to. Like that kind of idea is rough.
It's interesting that myths and the Bible and sex is always used in such an interesting way,
Yes.
dude. They be using this
Yes.
across the board.
Yes.
And it makes me feel weird sometimes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you for acknowledging my feelings.
All right, so that's Ragnarok. That's what we're saying is the birth of these Viking peoples, and it's their end times myth. Couple things on Ragnarok maybe that are interesting, that are funny. So there's like a big fight. You talked about wolves, right? So one of the wolves that breaks free is going to eat Odin, which is always a good time. There's a serpent that circles the entire world, and he's going to get into a fight with Thor, and they're going to kill each other. A lot of these gods are going to
Is
kill
that
each other
there
at the
right
same
there?
time.
That's Thor with a hammer fighting a serpent, is it not?
Yes, so that's
Huh.
Thor fighting the giant serpent that is wrapped around the entire world.
That's dope.
Yes, it's very cool. The other thing that's going to happen is Loki, when Loki breaks free, he's going to ride up on this ship called the Naglfar. And the
Naglfar?
The Naglfar. And the Naglfar I'm bringing up because it's really cool. It's a ship, and the ship is made of all the fingernails and toenails of all dead warriors.
Smelly. That sounds
Epic.
smelly.
And it's, it's captained by Loki, but I think the driver's like a frost god or something, so it's really fun.
God, dude. That boat sounds like it needs a healthy dose of tea tree oil.
A little tea tree oil for sure. It would be stinky. That is true. Okay, so that's Ragnarok. The doom of the gods, or the twilight of the gods. Now, as we go into our series today, we got some sources that we're going to be relying heavily on.
Oh, you got down, bro.
Yeah, I got two main sources for today's episode. The first one is the Saga of the Volsungs. That's going to be like the main one. That is our primary source. So that's a legit primary source from like the 1100s or something. Then I also am using The Children of Ash and Elm by Neil Price. If you want to know everything about Vikings in this time period, read this book or listen to it. It is awesome.
I've heard good things.
It is really, really good. He does such a good job of showing you how complex their society is and then reminding us of their terrible things so that you don't like admire
idolize
them.
it. Yeah.
Yes. And he does a good job of that. And I will,
because we do.
because we do, and he knows it. So he
My middle school was the Sullivan Celtics. It is no longer that.
Yeah,
They changed that. That's crazy.
it is crazy.
It's crazy.
He also has some humor. I like his humor.
Is he funny?
He'll be
Neil.
writing about, like a piece of a saga that we have, and then he'll say, and then it was cut off. Damn, that's funny. Or he'll start referencing like one of his favorite sagas, and he'll start going through it, and then he pauses and says, "You should just read it," and then doesn't quote any more of it.
Dang.
I thought like, this is really funny. This is a good time.
He's flexing on people. Like, hey, I'm not going to quote all this. Go do it. Okay.
Okay, so those are our two main sources for today. We have a bunch of other sources that I pulled from and that I just kind of started relying on. So one is Daniel McCoy. He wrote a book called The Viking Spirit. I mainly used his website. His website's like called norsemythology.org, where he wants you to buy his book because he shows you how in-depth he goes through all the mythology. He actually does a very good job, and I wanted to put his book out here because his book is good too. We have Joseph Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Faces. We'll get more into that next time as we get in some other sources with this, but I am always using this type of lens when I'm looking at some type of heroic story, which the Saga of the Volsung is. We have Dan Carlin from Hardcore History because we really love that guy. So he has 3 episodes that are very appropriate for our series. Thor's Angels, The Twilight of the Ice Year, and The Twilight of the Ice Year Part 2. Very good. Very long, but they were good. For like fact-checking things, I use the Oxford English Dictionary because that's my favorite dictionary because it goes over first usage of all these words. And the Encyclopedia Britannica because they're still laying it down.
Heavy lifters, bro.
They are. They do a really good job.
Heavy lifters.
That was the end of the world, Ragnarok. The other thing that's important in cosmology is to know the structure of the cosmology.
Is this where you got fucking Middle Earth from?
Yeah. Tolkien.
Sorry. Spoiler alert.
Tolkien loved himself some Norse mythology.
Okay.
All right. The idea with their cosmology, if you don't know, that's like the ordering of the universe in mythology. So how is the universe ordered? This is a big deal, right? This is obviously a huge question in every society, in every mythology, every religion. And so the thing with the Vikings that we need to know as we get into setting up their structure is that I think it's incorrect to say that they have beliefs. They have knowledge. This is how things are. This is not something you opt into in Scandinavia at this time period. You know this to be true.
Yeah, but can't that be argued with a lot of beliefs, though?
No.
You don't think
it's
so?
It's different.
Really?
It's just different. I don't know how else to describe it. If you spend enough time with this material, you're like, oh, this is just how it is for them. This is the same as breathing.
I don't know.
I know. The first couple times I heard the author say it, I was like, okay, but like, isn't this like this? No. Maybe the closest would be like a stereotypical Native American.
Yeah, the problem is just with beliefs though. I think that a modern day Christian would absolutely be like, this is knowledge and baked into my soul, and it's not a belief. This is absolute like God-given knowledge, facts.
No,
you disagree with that?
Disagree completely because
the Christian would say that
it would be true that they would say that because they have a canonical text to rely on.
That's what I'm taking it off of.
But that by itself sets up a distance. The Vikings didn't have this. They didn't need to write any of this down. They already all knew it. It is weird.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know how to describe it.
Perhaps this is just my Western lens being fogged.
Yeah, or
perhaps the window with which I view the world is flawed.
But maybe this is also something that we need to keep referring back to because, like, I'm bought in to this, but I don't know. I don't even know when the moment happened. So they call it the Vikings call them like the invisible population the invisible people. So all these magical creatures that we're going to meet and stuff, these are all in their world at all times. They can interact with them.
Invisible population?
Yeah, that's what they...
Spirits?
Not all of them.
Some of them are not spirits.
Correct. So
Okay.
let's look at the ordering of their universe. The way the story kind of goes, if we're summarizing very generally here, Odin and a couple other gods, they kill this giant Ymir. Ymir is like chaos. There's like chaos, which is Ymir, and there's this other thing, Jinu Naga Gap, which I will never say again, I think. And that represents the void, essentially, of existence. So the gods split Ymir, being nice people, and they split Ymir like in half. So Ymir comes from this word Yunja, which means to scream. So it screams into existence out of the void. Fucking metal, right? This is important for understanding a culture. In a book, I didn't reference it in my sources, but there's a book I always use for comparative world mythology called When They Severed Earth from Sky. Great title, because the first thing you do when you compare mythologies around the world is you look at how do they separate the earth and the sky. Pretty much every civilization has a way to do it, and some are more violent than others. So the Vikings way is that this god Ymir like asexually produces these gods like Odin, and they respond by killing him and making him scream into the void and then using his carcass to create the universe.
What does an asexual creation look like?
I think he like ate salt off a mountain.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
You think it feels good?
No.
Is there a climax to that?
No, I think specifically no climax.
Once the salt reaches the back of the throat, we call this pure penetration.
What makes this... So Ymir is killed and turned into Yggdrasil, which is the world tree. This tree is all of our universe. Okay? Right off the bat, differences between this mythology, cosmology, and others is that Yggdrasil is alive, which means that our universe is mortal.
Whoa, you can kill it.
You can kill it. You can kill our entire universe if you wanted to.
That's dope.
It's crazy.
That's cool.
This is not how, like, the Old Testament describes
The universe?
Yeah, forming the universe.
No.
The universe is not really something you can interact with as a human.
No. Well,
not in that terms.
No,
not in
not at
terms
all.
of like restructuring the universe to your designs. No. Because God has those designs and we are just in them.
we are merely like guests.
This is, you are inside this world and interacting with it. This is what I mean by the belief structure is different. There's no distance. It's like you're in it at all times. You have no choice. The amount of roots, so you can think of the trunk of the tree of Yggdrasil as all like the center of the universe, center of the cosmos, I think is how it's usually described. Now, its roots and its branches, there's varying degrees because nothing's canonical, so there's contradictions all the time when we're getting this information. But you can think about it like there's 3 major roots going to 3 different sections. There's
major
branches.
contradictions, you said?
Yeah, all over.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Because there's also biblical contradictions.
Yes.
And I don't mean that controversially.
No.
Like literally Jewish rabbis and academics will tell you that there is something called contradictive tension in this story. So it's like a thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's the same here. You're just saying that there's straight up contradictions.
Yeah, sometimes it'll have 9 major roots, and sometimes it'll have 3 major roots. It depends on who's telling the story.
And that's just a product of time, I think, right?
Product of time.
Yeah.
It's product of an oral society.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the major thing, is it being an oral society.
We've learned a lot in the Iliad.
Yes, very much the Iliad being told for what we assumed was a couple hundred years before it got written down, right? That was you and I's take on it.
Go listen to the Iliad series, also solid.
So, Yggdrasil is the entire universe. Within Yggdrasil, there are 9 realms. The ordering of the realms and where they are, it changes from story to story. I think a lot like our Iliad stuff, it needs to suit the lesson or the myth that's being used to tell it. So the authors, I would imagine that, your grandpa sitting around the campfire that's trying to make sure that you understand an important lesson before you go out to fight doesn't care if he's using the right number of branches of Yggdrasil. He's going to make sure that you get the lesson that's needed to be got.
For sure.
So I think there's just a lot of flexibility there. Viking mythology is wacky in like a fun way because there's like very serious things. There's incredibly serious stuff, but then there's also Ratatouste, the squirrel.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Land of the Light Elves over here.
Yes. So the squirrel, like, oh, that guy must be really important. What he does is he goes to the dragon Nidhogg, who wraps around the tree.
Nidhogg?
Yep.
That sounds like a pejorative term for sure. You
For sure.
Nidhogg.
You Nidhogg.
I feel like in the right bar, if I yelled that, I might get my ass beat for real. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think yelling in certain bars will get your ass beat. Like, regardless of what you say.
Period.
So anyway, the squirrel, it is going to make sure that it carries insults to the dragon and from the dragon to other people in the other realms. That's all it does.
What?
Yeah, it's weird.
It's a courier for insults?
Yeah. But we'll talk about insults today. Oh,
so
yeah.
people hate this fucking squirrel.
I mean, I think people listening
Here
to the
comes
story
the
love
fucking squirrel coming to insult me.
I'm telling you right
again.
now that
It's a Tourette squirrel comes up. You're bald. You're bald.
When I'm sitting at a fire and we're telling stories from what we assume is our history, I'd be like, can you tell me some more squirrel stories? Because those ones crack me up.
Let's hear some more mother jokes.
Now, within the tree, there's all these different realms. We're not going to go into all of them because they're not that important for our story. But the main one is that Midgard is the middle world, and that's where we live. So we live in the middle world. You can also go to like the upper place where you'll find like Asgard, which is where the gods live, some of the gods. And if you go down below into some of the wells, then you'll reach Hell and Niflheim.
That sounds highly German.
But what I recommend
Niflheim.
is to not compare these to
Greek mythology?
No, Christianity. It's not heaven. Like Asgard is not heaven.
No, I wouldn't have made that connection.
Good.
I don't think.
There's no Valhalla is not heaven.
Valhalla's dope.
Yeah.
That's way too cool to be heaven.
And hell is not hell.
I see that. It's the realm of the dead.
Yes. It's just where dead go.
Okay, so wait, can we make a distinction here?
Yeah.
I'm very fascinated with Valhalla.
Yes.
So if I die, how do I get to Valhalla versus getting to hell?
Yep, let's talk about that.
Are we doing it?
Yeah, we do need to talk about it.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so it's different. It's different than the stories that you're probably told, but let's clear it up.
This is another Western lens thing that I'm going to be...
No, this is just over time, people have changed things to fit what they want. And then Marvel didn't do it.
Are you about to ruin Valhalla for me?
No.
Okay. Are you about to ruin hell for me?
No. I feel like I don't mind going to this hell. I'm not excited about going to the Christian hell. But this one seems fine.
Well, Kevin, that might be where
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's rough. Me and all the unbaptized kids that died. Sorry. All right, so in a battle, half of the people that die are sent to Odin's wife, Frigg, or
this
Freya.
is a legitimate stat? Half. Okay.
Okay, so half go to her. I believe she gets first pick. This goes back and forth, right?
Do they...
So her realm is fairly nice.
Okay.
But like it's kind of dope. It has like shields and spears for like roofs and stuff. Like it's epic. So that's kind of where they can go. Odin also gets like half of the soldiers that die on the battlefield. So the other half. And they get sent to Valhalla by the Valkyrie. So the Valkyrie in not normal, in like modern Marvel stuff or in any kind of like retelling, they make the Valkyrie just look like babes,
Yeah.
like just really hot chicks that come down. No. That they are beautiful, but not in that way. They're supposed to be fucking terrifying.
Like almost like how a Bible would describe an angel. Like you're so terrified you like pass out on your face. Kind of thing.
I assume you would shit yourself if you saw one. Like straight up, the way that they're
They're so beautiful, it's terrifying.
Yeah, because they're scary and
Interesting.
beautiful. Like they are.
What is the terror aspect of it? That's like what's making it scary.
That they're like warrior women that encompass your doom somehow, and they're like not giants, but they're just. I'll get some Valkyrie stuff for us as we get into our legend.
Okay.
Because they interact with the Viking populations.
That's where Valkyrie really made its entrance.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So Valkyries.
Should I have known that?
I don't know. So Valkyries come and take the soldiers. Now, the way that most listeners probably have heard it is that the Valkyries come and choose the best soldiers from a battlefield and bring them to Valhalla. And that is like a common way to do it, but it should be half. Like the half thing is used a lot. And Neil Price was referencing the fact that the other half might be going to Freya or Frigg, Odin's wife.
Okay. And then
they go to Valhalla. So in Valhalla, you get to eat the choice cut of pork. Vikings love pork.
Yummy.
You get to fight and kill each other during the day if you want to, and you are reborn that night. So, good time.
Oh, it's just never-ending fighting.
Yeah, it's fun. But what's going to happen during Ragnarok is that you are going to essentially become Odin's soldiers, and then you're all going to die for real with the world, trying to protect it.
Okay, so you do come out of Valhalla to fight in Ragnarok.
Yes.
When that eventually does make its way back.
Yeah,
full circle.
After Heimdall sounds the Gjallarhorn, you will have to come fight.
Sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty epic. There's also other parts of the afterlife that are confusing. Like I think Thor has all the slaves live with him. So like even if you die a slave, I think you still have to stay a slave. It's rough.
Really?
I don't know. It wasn't clear.
Didn't see that one in the Marvel universe.
The sea has its own afterlife. Unclear if it's
the
good or
ocean.
Bad. The ocean. So if you
has
die,
its own afterlife.
If you die in the ocean, you go to a different.
Oh, that's awful. I can't escape this fucking place.
Yep. Unclear if it's good or bad.
Maybe the squirrel will come visit me in the ocean and be like, "You stupid bitch."
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, probably. Okay, so that's the Valkyrie, and that's Yggdrasil, the world that we live in.
All right, I feel like I have some answers with Valhalla.
Yeah. Now, in this picture, they are trying to structure out the 9 realms. It's not clear. There's no universal structure for the 9 realms and how they're located and all that kind of stuff. It's just not a thing. So, take all the stuff that you are consuming, all the media, with just a big old grain of salt. Okay, so going back to the real Vikings, right? We call it the migration period. So in the 500s, we think that this volcano happened after they were already migrating because of the fall of the Roman Empire, and things are just crazy. Then we have essentially like 400 years or 200 years, 300 years, however long you want to say, from 530 until the Vikings show back up. There's a lot of arguments about when the Vikings officially show back up, but we'll say, for the sake of following like a classical narrative, is that they show back up in 793, I think is the one we're going to say, which is the rate of the Linden's farm. Which means that we have a couple hundred years that are unaccounted for.
Of course.
This would be the birthing of these people, the Scandinavian people, or the reforming of them might be a better way to describe it.
Enter the tale of legend.
Yeah, myth and legend come in
Mhm.
here.
Yeah, for sure.
A couple points to say before we go into one of their myths is Viking is not a word that they would have called themselves. Like, they wouldn't have understood if you said, "You Vikings." They'd be like, "Who are you talking about?"
Is that an English word?
Well, the origin of it is either from an Old Norse word meaning creek, or an Old English word wick meaning a camp or a dwelling place. So if I was looking at the Oxford English Dictionary, like first usages, and it was described more as kind of like a job, like a profession. Like, I'm going on a Viking.
Oh,
Or-
interesting.
Or you are a Viking in that, like, that's your job.
So
like you
it-
are a teacher.
Oh, interesting.
And this will be a common thing because they are an oral people. Most of our information that was written down by the people they were violently fighting.
Mm-hmm.
So you're only meeting their raiders,
Mm-hmm.
and those people are probably Christians. Those two factors are huge for uncovering the
Yeah.
context of the Vikings,
Yeah.
quote unquote Vikings. Now, a little bit on that. So a lot of our sources are going to be Christians. That definitely colors a lot of these stories, and it makes it difficult sometimes to parse out. The other thing is that during this time period, when they show back up in 793, quote unquote, show back up, because they become so decentralized and because so much of the farmlands have been destroyed, they are raiders now. That is their economy. They raid.
They're pirates.
They're pirates.
They're fucking just going off, just straight up smashing and grabbing.
Dude is bad.
Okay.
Um,
Interesting tactics, dude.
Yes. But I think it's important to see that as not a conscious choice to not become farmers and participate in like a geopolitic kind of thing, but instead to see it as a result of the shitstorm of the 500s.
I am a product of my environment.
Yes.
Yeah. The classic Dave Chappelle.
Now, we're not going to admire the Vikings. I feel like I have to say this part because every historian says this part, and it's important that people like Tacitus, who is a Roman right
Mhm.
after Caesar, who writes about them, his information and a lot of this other information we're going to talk about is repurposed by Nazis to talk about something called the Aryan race. And
That's where that evolves from?
yes,
Fuck.
it comes from Tacitus.
Originally Tacitus, and he's the one who like fostered all that, and that's where literally Nazis got that from.
Well, so like Tacitus was just recording it down. He was just like you can read it. It's okay.
He's not saying he believes that. He's just writing it down.
So what they used to do is when you would meet a new people, right? A new society comes, and we talked about it with the Gauls and the Germans, right? They just like show up one day. You're like, holy shit! There's a people across the river now.
You guys are blue.
And so they write down what they see from them. The Germans, as we talked about with Caesars, are interesting because they're blonde hair and blue eyes.
Right.
And most of them, or all of them, according to Tacitus, were blonde hair, blue eyes. So he says their blood's pretty pure. And that's how they saw like races like that instead of ethnicities. And they don't have like the modern ideas with it because they were just worried about getting killed and categorizing people so they could understand them.
It's not a let's pause and reflect on this.
He's like, oh, they're so smart. This people's the best. You know what? I think they're better than me. Like
this is working.
No Roman is writing down being like, I'm weaker than them.
Yeah, right.
No,
okay.
have you met any Roman? Have you read any Roman stuff? All Roman stuff is just straight propaganda about how great Rome is.
For sure.
And so what happened is later on, they went back and they took Tacitus's words and turned it into like their concept.
They perverted it.
The other reason why we're not going to admire the Vikings too much, like we complained about with Caesars, because of how much slave and sexual assault that are in these stories, it's very much a part of their society.
But you know what, though, dude? If it's one thing that you and I have been kind of hollering about war, from what all of our literature that we've consumed, especially Masters of the Air, you have to take into account of
Absolutely.
all that. Literally is as much as bullets are a part of war, rape is also a part of
Sexual
war.
assault is a part of conflict,
Period. End of discussion. Yeah. Even in these myths, dude.
even in the myths.
So
It comes up in these myths.
it's part of it. Still to this day.
Yep. Now I'm gonna save a lot of our like more intense information for our next one because our next episode will be looking at the legends. And so the difference between a myth and a legend, myth is about how these cultures see the formation of their universe, like how they see the structure of it, and how they see their origins. Whereas a legend is more tying those origins to reality. So instead of it just being like Zeus on Mount Olympus doing crazy stuff, now you're saying that Zeus fathered Heracles, and Heracles lived in this city-state in Greece. And so we can tie that city-state and that person to a time period now.
Okay.
And so that's going to be the difference between these two. So I want to save some of our more like intense conversations about, their society, because their society is fascinating. It is interesting as hell. There's so much there.
Would you say it's interesting because it's just something starkly and like different? Not starkly, but intensely different than ours.
Yes, it's just so different.
Yeah. So there's not a lot of relating that we're going to be
Right.
doing with this.
And-
Is what you're saying.
Yes, correct. And that how much we got wrong, like how much we get wrong when we think about them.
Like because of the way that the media and modern day
Yes.
twists on
And
Vikings.
the people that were writing it down. So again, those Christians that were getting raided, they're not like,
that's
I wonder what their home life is like as they're writing down. They're like, holy shit, they're stabbing us
Yeah,
all
yeah.
again. Like, and I don't blame them for it.
No. Absolutely. That's what they're writing is absolutely
That's-
correct. They're like, I'm getting pillaged.
Yes. And so basically these, like Neil Price does a good job because he's saying, I don't want to just know what they did. I want to know why they did it.
Great.
Like
great,
why
yes.
why are they raiders who are
Mhm.
so violent? And then it helps you understand that I think for a lot of these people, violence is the export and peace is their import. Like they are raiding to foster stability in their world.
I mean, it's a tactic.
It works. They are so good.
What are you calling this? What are we calling this tactic in battle? We're just literally raiding.
It's just raiding. It's just straight up raiding. Piracy. But it's raiding. It's there once we get into the river boats, are there long ships? Because I have a whole bunch of articles I read on long ships, and it's just like they don't fuck around.
Are we gonna get into it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Not today.
But yeah,
But I have it all.
something to look forward to
Yes.
as far as raids.
Yes. For raids, it's all
Let's
gum about the
go.
long ships.
Yeah, listeners. At one point, I believe Kevin texted me and he was like, "Yeah, so these battles are rough."
They were rough. They're rough because they're not battles. And so I tried to find a battle where they used these early Viking tactics, and there's not really any because they weren't a centralized people. They weren't an army. They were raiders. It would be, you would go to the bar and you'd be like, hey guys, I got a long ship. Like I bought a galley. So I'm going to need 10 of you and let's go make some fucking money. And then we would go out, we would make some money, and then we might be set for the rest of our lives.
Oh, that sounds kind of cool.
So that's what I'm
I
saying.
hate saying that. Wait, so I have a question. 13th Warrior.
Yes, 13th War is based on Norse mythology.
Okay.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I will always
That
remember
movie's awesome.
the raid scene
Yes.
of the shadow of the dude carrying the dude's head, and
Yes.
it like, okay, I need to rewatch that movie.
We need to rewatch that movie.
Have you? When's the last time you've seen it?
I was a kid.
I remember it slapping pretty hard.
I loved it. I loved when he's learning the language, and they're like, "How'd you learn a language?" And he goes, "I listened." I was like, "Oh, so cold."
Yeah, I remember my dad got the last one at Blockbuster and he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna wait to watch this without mom."
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's like a gladiator scenario when we were 8.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. No centralization in this time period, so they're all small little kingdoms, quote unquote kingdoms.
Would we call kingdoms, not warring tribes, small little kingdoms? Is that fair?
Yes. They're probably more like tribes, but when we're looking at the mythology, they're calling
Mhm.
them kingdoms because
Okay.
they want to establish like a
That's
lineage.
That's the. I see you.
That's the Heracles to
I'm
Zeus.
picking it up. I'm receiving the full picture here, bro.
Yep. All right. A couple other things on mythology just that are interesting. They're not too important, but differences maybe. So every person, female and male, has a female spirit inside of them.
I like it.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Well, that makes sense.
Well, okay, so I liked it at first. I was like, this is like feminist as fuck, dude. Hell yeah. And then
But
Neil Price kept talking, and I was like, damn it, this is the problem. He's like, it's just another way to have control over women.
of course, it's like all the dudes get to like, we should say we all have feminine spirits, and it'll be just us being like, hey, I don't want to do the dishes right now. Why? Because my feminine spirit told me not to do it.
So it's
Oh,
great.
okay.
So the story we're going to be looking at today is called The Saga of the Volsung. I got this book when I was in college for a middle English class that I was taking, but I never ended up using the book, so I didn't read it. And I knew that Tolkien really liked this book and used a lot of it for The Lord of the Rings, and so I read it.
Nerd alert.
It was awesome. Again, going back to the Silmarillion, because Silmarillion got me thinking about all this stuff, and that's why I read it. Okay. The Saga of the Volsung, I'm reading the Penguin Classics version of it. It's very good. The introduction's as long as the book, which is hilarious. And the translator does a good job of explaining when words have multiple meanings and what those multiple meanings can be. The central figure of the Saga of the Volsung in the beginning of it, the lineage that we're tracing instead of Zeus, is Odin. Now, if it's Wednesday, that would be Odin's Day. Because Wednesday is Odin. Odin is the main god, probably the strongest god out of this mythology.
Wednesday is where we get it from Odin.
Odin has like a million names. He's like the oldest
it's like
god
that.
ever in the world. Somehow.
It's like how Caesar is like randomly in.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So Odin is been around as people have believed in Odin for thousands of years. Probably when we were studying the Celts in Gallic people, they would have been worshiping Odin way before that time period.
But it is also fair to say, based on your recent comments, that they don't believe in Odin. They know Odin to be true.
They know Odin's there. Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm just making sure I
Yeah,
understand.
Odin's just interacting in their world. A little bit on that, though. I was trying to think about how else I can explain it. They didn't need to intellectually or spiritually find connection with God.
You know what, dude? I think I have the perfect way to explain this. Yeah. Faith isn't a part of any of it.
It's not. There's no faith.
There's no faith. That's the best way. I think what you mean.
Yes,
there's no sitting there when like I'm really struggling with my faith today.
Yes.
No.
That's not a thing. No. They would not know. They would not understand that.
Got it.
Because even when they convert to Christianity, they still believe in Odin, and they're like, "Oh, cool, he's like an Odin guy," and they're like, "No." It takes them some places like really struggle converting because they convert. They're like, sure, we'll take another god in. And they just don't understand monotheism because it doesn't make any sense to them. For generations,
that's dope.
It's hella funny.
Yeah, dude, another god sounds great.
Think about it like this: you're a Viking, and you wake up out of your little bedroll, and you look out at the world, and you are, even though you're this crazy, violent person, you're consumed by the world around you, in the mysteries, in the beauty, in the absolute spirituality of the world. Why are there trees instead of no trees? Why are there this types of trees? You know, look at these birds flying with this meaning and this purpose. The invisible population is there interacting with their world because how else can this world be so gorgeous and beautiful and deadly at the same time? That's why there's no belief or faith. It's just there to them. In some ways, it's admirable that they see the world for what it really is, which is something truly compelling, which is how we try to teach our kids to see the world, right? You know, I try to, when students act like everything is boring, I try to make them say, can you explain to me where your desk comes from? And they can't, right? I can't. And that's a mystery. And we just gloss over the mysteries of the world.
Totally.
But they don't. They accept them.
Yeah, I think in Buddhism there's like this interconnectedness concept
Mm.
of like how like what you were saying like
Yep.
with the desk, where it's like, hey man, some person had to build that desk. That
Yep.
desk had to come from somewhere.
Yes.
All these
You
things.
can trace it back and back and back.
Totally, and that should make you feel connected. But for some reason, in modern day society, it makes us feel distanced.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because we, like you said, we overlook these things.
We overlook it. We gloss over that.
But you're
part.
saying this is all.
They don't.
No, they can't.
Specifically don't.
Yeah.
And I think it's just how their culture has had to survive, right? Don't miss anything because the world is not giving us many chances. But it also means that their gods are fascinating. Like they are so interesting. So Odin has become one of my favorite gods. I did not think he was too interesting for a long time. But what I like about Odin is all the random shit that he does. So Odin does not mind essentially killing himself to get things, to get information, to get knowledge. And just as somebody who likes to read and gain knowledge and I'm trying to never become satisfied with my mental state, like where I'm at. I always want to push myself. He's that way to a detriment, but it's still cool.
Philosophically, this is a fun thing to look at, right? Because when you look at all of these hard things that human beings do, they have to go through a certain type of pain and like killing of their old self to become a new self, right?
But the killing of his old self to make his new self, he calls it like killing of his tertiary, like his body, to achieve a spiritual new body.
I find this is a good message, I feel like, to receive.
So he has some ravens. We're not going to talk too much on the ravens because they don't feature too much in the
Great
story.
Odin's ravens!
Yes. So he has 2 ravens, Memory and Thought, and they like report to him. So he's not omnipotent.
Whoa.
He's not Zeus.
Memory and Thought is the name of the ravens?
His 2 favorite ones, yeah.
That's cool.
But the ravens they report to him things that are going on in the world. He has one eye because he gave up one eye to go into one of the wells, I think, and talk to the head of Mimir, I believe, and get more knowledge, get like prophecy.
Oh, I see. He sacrificed it for.
He pulled out his own eye as a token to get entry to then talk to like the smartest god available.
I was gonna guess that a raven poked it out.
Then he wanted to learn magic. He wanted to learn runes. He wanted to learn how to read and write. And runes existed outside of Odin, which I find interesting.
What's a rune?
A rune is their language.
Oh.
But runes are complicated. Runes are your language, but it's also like a magical practice at the same time, but they're different.
So kind of like that movie The Arrival, where like the language of that alien language makes her also time travel.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
There's like a utility to the language.
So that's very good. There's like 2 rune types. There's like the spell runes, and then there's like writing with runes. And Odin wanted to learn it.
Dope.
He wanted the power of it.
It's dope as fuck.
So he hung himself from Yggdrasil.
Oh God!
Stabbed himself.
That took a turn.
He just made sure nobody would help him, and he stayed there, I think, for 9 days. 9's like the holy number of the Norse mythology, and he essentially just starved himself and killed himself over and over again until the runes agreed to speak to him, and then he learned runic magic. This is interesting for Norse mythology, and it shows a contradiction that's, I think, purposeful. Magic is the women's role in this society. Like, let's say that there's a famine in your little village. You would talk to the women, like, hey, I need you to go talk to some of the spirits, and the women would know how to do it. They would go practice their magic. There might be like something equivalent to a shaman that could go do a practice. They have like
is that where you got the Bene Gesserit thing from? Is Dune like?
Maybe.
You know what I mean? I feel like that's like a Bene
something
Gesserit
there,
kind of vibe.
That is kind of a similar vibe. These ones are a little bit different. This one's a little more. There's like some sex magic going on too.
Oh, that's dope.
It's pretty fun. It's pretty fun to read, and like because it's just wacky. Like they have like a metal staff, and they ride the staff.
Like the dudes do?
No, because dudes don't practice magic.
Oh, the chicks do.
Yes,
they ride it.
And Odin practices magic. So the most powerful god, and he gets made fun of by some of the other gods
thing, right?
But he doesn't care because he just wants power and knowledge.
So he didn't give a shit.
Which shows you a contradiction of their society that you don't actually have to agree with masculine, feminine. Like their ideas of masculine, feminine are not the same as ours, and I think That's what I wanted to highlight here,
Mm.
is that they may have defined roles, but they don't see the roles as disparaging. Because you're a woman, you have womanly duties, but that doesn't make those duties less than mine. They're different duties.
I feel like that's going to be a hard one for people to understand, bro.
Absolutely, because it's a different culture and
I
different time.
know, but I just feel like people are like, I feel like there is a 55-year-old man that's going to hear you just say, like, what?
Right.
Not in my house.
Right. Or a younger Kevin feminist that's saying, well, it's not the same, and it is disparaging. It absolutely is.
Mm.
Right? It could go both ways on
Yeah.
that. But it's different society. Now, I will say that their marriages have issues. There's a lot of domestic violence going on here.
Dr. Kevin checking in.
So we're not saying that it's like a better system, but that part is interesting. Odin also has Slipnir, which is his 8-legged horse. Pretty dope.
What is it called now?
Slipnir.
Slipmere.
Yeah. I think
These all sound like Lord of the Rings names, dude.
where do you think he got a lot of his ideas from?
I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the Lord of the Rings.
Slipnir, I believe Loki turned into a horse and had sex with a horse, and then
Excuse
that
me?
horse is
Back up?
Yeah.
What's that?
Loki, our other favorite
Wait.
god.
Oh, pause.
Yep.
Loki, correct me if I'm wrong, is a dude,
Yeah, but again, masculine, feminine, not the same.
but is also okay. All right, let me rephrase the
Yeah.
question. Loki has sex with a horse, correct?
Mhm. Or a
All right,
horse
let
has
me-
sex with him.
Okay, so
I
that's
forget which
that.
one.
My question was
Yeah.
gonna say top or bottom. Is Loki getting fucked by a horse, or is Loki fucking a horse?
I don't remember. Loki had such dealings with this one horse that somewhat later Loki gave birth to a gray foal. So Loki turned into the woman for it to give birth.
he got fucked by a horse.
Then he became pregnant, and then he gave birth to the horse. That's right.
Loki got fucked by a horse.
Yeah.
Huh.
Loki's pretty fun. Loki has a good time.
Is that a good time?
For Loki, it is. Loki's having fun at all times.
Like, is this horse speaking words? Or is it like...
It was... I don't think Slipmere talks.
Okay.
And I don't think Slipmere's dad talked.
I just want to make sure I understand the correct portrayal.
Sure. Anyway, Slipmere will take part in this story.
These are the hard-hitting questions, bro.
Yep.
Sorry.
So that's Odin. Odin's interesting. Let's get into this story. Saga of the Volsung. So we're going to go from Odin, and we're going to look at one of his lineages all the way down to quote-unquote real people. People that may have existed. We're starting our story in an unclear place. I believe we're starting in Asgard. If not Asgard, one of the realms, probably not Midgard. Okay? And we're going to do a lot of this first part, the mythology today. I'm going to give you guys a lot of names. You don't really need to pay attention to the names until I say when. And when I tell you the names suddenly matter for the rest of the story, that's when you got to be like, I got to remember this guy's name.
I'll try to help out with that.
Yeah.
I got a piece of paper here to write stuff down.
Right now, we're basically just doing the start of like this mythology and cosmology. So the names are going to come and go pretty quickly to
All right.
establish legitimacy.
All right, autopilot.
So Odin is going to have a child named Siggy. Siggy is a word that essentially means son of Odin. Odin's son.
That sounds like just came out of a bar, and I'm like, Kevin, let me get a ciggy.
There you go. Little Siggy. And there is another god called Skadi. And Skadi had a thrall. Thrall is a slave. And I'm only bringing that in because the slavery of this time of the early Vikings and the later Vikings is huge. Everybody is enthralled to each other. Like, to become enthralled is to become made a slave. Pretty intense. And the reason why we think that the slavery is such a big deal is that we found some mounds, it was like some places, some mounds that we think are slaves, right? It's like thralls that we found, but they have the grooves carved in their teeth. So we think they must have been Vikings of like another clan that were conquered and thralled to another person.
How does the teeth though indicate that they?
Oh, because we think that some Vikings, to look scary,
Whoa, sharpened their teeth.
no, they like scooped like holes in their teeth, and then they filled it with like ink.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
To look like more just like animal.
Scary as
yeah,
hell,
what
yeah.
the fuck? Okay.
We'll watch The Northman. Maybe we'll
I wanna
live
watch
stream
that.
part of it
Yeah, I
for
wanna see that.
like Patreon, because the Valkyries have the grooved teeth, and it makes the Valkyries look pretty scary, which is fun. Okay, so anyway, Scotty has a thrall named Bredy, and Siggy and Bredy go hunting. Seems cool, right? They just go hunting. Bredy kills more things than Siggy. Siggy gets mad and kills Bredy.
Okay.
All right. None of that seems, I mean, it's weird, but like fairly typical start to a mythology. What becomes weird, maybe not weird, interesting, is that when Siggy goes back and Scotty's like, "Hey, where's my slave?" And he's like, "I don't know. We lost each other."
So he lies.
Yes. And they find Bredy's body, and they call Siggy a murderer. Specifically, the definition is a wolf in hallowed places. This is Viking culture, and in Viking culture, from what I understand, killing somebody is not murder. Killing somebody is just something that you do sometimes. Usually it's your export, right? Usually it's a raid, but sometimes stuff happens. Murder is when you hide it. That is the difference in this society that you need to know before we get into the story, because this comes up so many times. And it doesn't make sense if you don't really capture this moment. Him killing the slave was not the big deal,
It was the integrity violation.
because you need to own it so that you can pay the damages.
You did not take accountability.
Because you have to pay. Man, we talked about this with the Iliad so many times.
I think that this is warrior mentality.
It's
I think
the
this
price.
is warrior culture.
Yes, this is the price. Everybody has a monetary value.
Kevin and I have been quite into skin in the game.
Skin in the game.
Yeah.
Okay, so he has to leave this other world that he's from. And Odin helps him because Odin likes Siggy. And he teaches him how to raid. So he just goes and raids a bunch of places. Now he raids and raids and raids until eventually he becomes the ruler of Hunland in Germany.
High praise.
Again, if this is your culture and this is one of your most famous stories of one of your beloved dynasties of families, it starts with the guy raiding until he becomes the king.
So this is the way.
This is how you do
This
it.
is like our Megiddo series when Tutmos was like, my dad did it, his dad did it, and I'm going to do it too.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. All right. So he's now in our world, and he's in this like northern part of Germany or in Greenland or Iceland. Who knows, right? Because it's mythology, so none of these places are real yet. He's just in northern Europe, we could say, at this point.
It's more of a state of mind.
It's a state of mind. All right. Siggy is going to want to have a kid. So he gets married. I don't think we know his wife's name yet. But they have a kid named Rarer.
Rarer.
The rural juror. Rarer. Sure.
Rarer. Welcome to the world, Rarer. Let's hear about Rarer.
Now, Siggy's brother-in-laws kill Siggy. This is common stuff that happens.
Yeah, see, so I think we just, my mind, listeners, is going to like, this is just Wild Wild West.
This is the Wild West.
Sometimes you have 2 beers and I'm killing Kevin today.
Yep. And I think that this is showing the mythological origins of all these great dynasties that they believe in, that they all came from chaotic times, in that they get more kind of structured and targeted with their anger. But at the beginning, it seems like everyone just gets mad and kills each other.
Yeah. Some cultures are violent. I would argue the United States has a pretty violent culture.
Yes. Well, and you look at the birthing of the nation to look at how violent it is. We were birthed through revolution and first through genocide of the Native Americans. And so, of course, that's baked into our culture.
There's gonna be some bleed in the future.
And if they were born from the trends and forces of the Roman collapse and these geothermal nightmare, then that's the birth of it. That's how they survived.
Geothermal nightmare.
Geothermal nightmare is kind of cool. Okay, so Rarer takes over, and this is why killing people is not a big deal, because as the son of somebody who was slain, he now has a choice if he wants to avenge his father's murder or not. People ask him, like, hey, so have you decided if you will be attempting to take revenge or not? And they just like ask you to him, and he's like, I have not decided yet.
Giving it some, not really. Do they pray?
No.
We're not prayers. There's no
Kind
prayers.
of, but it's
Is there
weird.
meditations?
The women
Is
can
there
talk.
communing with the gods?
The women can.
Okay. Oh, see, another Benny Gesserit thing,
Yes.
I feel like.
Yes, the women, because the magic is a female thing.
That's cool.
Yes. We don't know a lot about their practice. Remember with the Celts and the Gallics, when I read that book and I was trying to explain some of the stuff, and we just don't know because it's all oral history.
Yeah.
And so, and it's secret knowledge from the general population. So that's how they are controlling some power. And so we'll never know, which
Right.
is sad. Anyway, he decides that he would like to get some revenge. And he does. Pretty cool for him. He ends up having a wife, but he can't seem to have a kid. So
Aww.
Odin, for some reason, likes this line, right? He likes the Sigi line. He has an idea. Odin's always has schemes going on, like Loki does.
Mm-hmm.
And so he has Frigg, his wife, and they used another god, Hymir. I don't know how to say HR. I don't know how to say Hymir. And they give Rarer's wife a golden apple, which grants the fertility.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
They got some. They went on that Hims website and got
They
some
got
golden
some
apples. Golden apples from Hims.
I like that. The interesting thing for me, I was like thinking about like why, like as a story and a plot device, why would you do this? I think this is bolstering the god bloodline here, because you have Odin now essentially interacting with the blood twice, because he gives birth to Sigi and then he again helps give birth to this next one.
There's like intervention in some way.
Yeah,
So
and-
it keeps them connected in that way.
Yeah, this redundancy.
Yeah,
That's how I see it.
for sure.
Okay.
No, it's always and that the use of apples, bro, is
Yes.
interesting to me in myths and religion.
Yes,
If I must be honest,
absolutely.
what is that?
Because they're so fucking good.
They're delicious, bro. They're
was-
delicious, bro.
It's so funny because I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like, man, there's a lot of apple myth going on. But I was eating like a pink lady because the pink lady is my favorite apple. And I was thinking like, I have like candy in my cupboard and I'm eating an apple. Like
Mhm.
it is literally so good that even with crack candy, like
Mhm.
candy that is designed to manipulate my brain, I
Yes.
still sometimes am like, apples are so, like unbeatable.
The
Unmatched.
crunch. There's something about
Yeah.
the crunch. All of it. Yeah.
I don't agree with like the soft app, like the Honey Crisp. Not for me.
I'm not a Honey Crisp guy.
I don't like the soft.
I'm more of a Granny Smith sour kind of guy.
I do love a Granny Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, Rarer has a child named Volsung. This is where the saga starts. Now, Volsung is crazy from the get-go because his mother, right, the wife of Rarer, she was pregnant for 6 years. Long time to be pregnant.
Can you imagine the arguments for those 6 years?
Dude, so 6 years, and then he just like breaks her open to get out, kisses her, and then she dies.
Oh, okay.
Pretty metal.
Yeah,
Um,
that's one way to be born.
yeah. So
Fuck.
now the Sigi and the Rarer, those names aren't that important. What matters here that we understand is that we have a direct line from Odin in Volsung. So this will be the name that we continue, right? This is the dynasty, and that he is now the leader of. He's a king.
The
Excuse me.
Volsung is the new dynasty.
This is the new dynasty
The
from
new era.
Odin, and Volsung is in charge of Hunland, Germany, wherever the heck that mythological place is. And we can think about him as the great grandson of Odin.
Okay.
Okay,
I feel like I've met someone with the last name Volsung. Is that a thing?
that'd be dope.
I feel like I have.
I don't remember if all the Volsungs die at the end or not. We'll get there. Okay, so the Volsung, he marries this lady named Hrimnir. Himrir's daughter, which is Hljod. Hiljod. Now, Himrir, that's like a giant, I believe. And so that was how they got the golden apple. So this is like a deity type figure. And his daughter, Helod, is now entering the bloodline with the Volsung. So now they have multiple deities in their bloodline. This is important for our story because it's just bolstering the name and like why they're going to be able to do so much stuff.
It's all about secession, dude. It's all about secessions, even in like not so distant past kingships and royalties in England and all of this.
Well, and because I want to eventually because I was originally going to do the Battle of Hastings for my battle of this series.
Yeah.
And I still think I am going to do the Battle of Hastings after this series.
Are you?
Or it's at least one of them. It's on my docket. The difference is that they are using late Viking stuff. Like they're mainly using the shield wall and they're using like army tactics, which these Vikings didn't. So I didn't want to do that. Or they did do that, but they were mainly doing raiding. So I wanted to stick to raiding for a battle.
Mm-hmm.
But Battle of Hastings, in most of these places, we played Crusader Kings 3.
Mm-hmm.
The Vikings conquer most of Europe,
yeah.
and they become the dynasties.
Yes.
So, of course, this makes sense why this would be important because these are the people that rule everything.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too much into like collective unconsciousness stuff yet. We will go there. But language has a memory, and so does like our lineages of our societies. Like things survive and they get passed on whether we know why they do or not. The fact that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are all Norse gods. The fact that Norse has taken over so much of English. The fact that we say, because like leg is a Norse word. You used to say shank if you wanted to use an English word. You would say your shanks.
You can think even on a smaller scale, dude.
Sure.
Think about even things that only your family has said, or things that were like traditions that only your family does, and how over time, because you said language has a memory. Is that what you said?
That's what I believe, yes.
So there you go, right? Like I still have sayings that I heard from my father, that he heard from his father, that he heard from his dad. You know what I'm saying?
And these words,
there's that memory that you talk. I like it.
In our genetics, so like even if you don't have any European ancestry in your DNA, which you do probably, but if you think that you don't, if you speak English or you're able to understand English, I think that is a component as well of like the collective unconsciousness stuff, and that these stories are a part of our world. We just don't understand why or how.
I see what you're saying. Like we're doing it without even knowing. Yes. For instance, like your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
we
Friday.
Use these words
all the time.
Routinely.
Yes.
And read them routinely. And it comes from here,
Norse,
from what we're talking about.
Norse gods.
Then you don't even know it.
You don't even know it. Volsung has 10 sons and 1 daughter. We're not going to go over all of them because they're not that important, name-wise. I think it's just to show how fertile this bloodline is based on all of these deities interacting with them so many times. What is important is that there are some twins. I believe they're twins. The eldest ones, which is Sigmund and Signy. Sigmund, we're going to want to remember. Sigmund is going to be pretty important.
Sigmund.
And Signy. Signy's important too. These two are pretty wild. They're fun though.
Sigmund and Signy.
Now they have their kingdom, right, in Hunland. And Hunland is essentially like a huge tree. It's like a palace tree. Don't know exactly what's going on here. Not very clear. But I imagine that it's kind of referencing Yggdrasil and that this is a mythological time, so it's probably close to a world, like a tree holding up the world, tree holding up his kingdom, is how I kind of see it. Oops, we're not there yet. What happens here is that the king of this place called Gotland, Siggeir, he comes over and asks for Signy's hand in marriage. She doesn't want to, but she wants her dad to decide because she believes in the rules of their society, I guess. And the king says, we kind of need this to happen. Now, marriages in this society, in the Viking society, are very transactional. You can have multiple wives. You can have, like, it's not polygamy but it's a different term. It's like polygamy, but it basically means you can have multiple wives. And you can have concubines, and those things are different.
Mm-hmm.
It's very confusing. So she says yes. During the fire that night, right? There are always like a fire at night, and there's like a big feast, and people are partying and stuff. That because you have to. Most of Viking society is gift giving with other people's. Like that's how you cement friendships, and friendships are formalized. And so this would be part of the formal interaction. We talked about this with the Xenia stuff of Greece. That in ancient societies, you had to have rules, like explicit rules for how you interact with one another, because there wasn't the risk is that the other person's going to freaking murder you, and so you need to have formalized interactions to make sure that the other person's on the up and up of like how to act and how to be safe. You give gifts. This is part of why raiding becomes so important, because you need the stuff to give the stuff. And there's this big party, and all of a sudden this cloaked guy comes in. No one's seen him before. He takes out his sword, crazy to do at a big party full of Vikings, I'd imagine, and shoves it into the tree. And then he kind of just like straight up disappears. I think he says something like, "If whoever pulls this sword is the king," or something like that. And so he essentially challenged everybody to do it. Everybody tries to, nobody can do it. Except for Sigmund. Sigmund comes over when it's his turn and pulls it out. And he's like, "Hey, I guess I'm the greatest." This should be reminding us of a bunch of stuff, right? This is Excalibur. This is the Sword in the Stone.
Of course.
This is Lord of the Rings with Aragorn's sword. Yes, all of this very much from this. Siggeir offers a bunch of gold for it, and Sigmund gives some like good burns. He's like, "You had your chance, and if you were stronger, then you could have pulled it out yourself. So don't be a little baby."
Yeah, for sure.
Which insults are a big deal in this society. And
I mean, they have an entire squirrel that goes back and forth and hurls them towards people. So
do they have it? There's terms for it, for like giving insults. Like if you are
like doing it well.
Yeah, or like what the interaction is even called.
Oh, really?
I think it's called like Senna or something like that. Well, I think we'll get to it in this one.
Well, earlier your map
Yeah.
showed that the Vikings had at one point perhaps made their way to the like New England area of the United States.
Yes, absolutely.
And that explains why everyone from that area is like kind of an asshole.
That's good.
You like that?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so I have family out there, everyone, listeners. I love everyone in the New England area. It's all good. I'm using their words. They straight up told me they're like, we're assholes.
Yeah,
That's
they're also awesome people. It's both.
Incredibly,
It's a both and
incredibly
situation.
awesome human beings.
All right. So Siggeir, the next day, he wants to leave, which is violating some of their terms. So this is the king of Gotland that is trying to marry Signy. You're supposed to stay for a certain number of days. Like leaving early is kind of a taboo. So he says he will repay having to leave early by hosting Volsung and all of his sons and anybody that Volsung wants to bring. Bring your whole army if you want to. Just bring everybody, and I'll host you all, and that will make up for this transgression, which we see the transactional nature of the society. And they say, sure. And so in 3 months go by, and then the Volsungs start to go over to Gotland. Now, if you haven't found out by now, this is obviously a trap. Siggeir is pissed because he wanted that sword, and he didn't like that he wasn't able to buy it. So this is causing the whole fight. The Volsungs are going to sail 3 of their long ships over to Gotland, which means that, that could be anywhere from
I was going to say
200 to 300 men.
It's also interesting to figure out if you're sailing to Gotland, where Gotland might be.
Where Gotland might be, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Not 300 men. I don't know how many men it would be. 150 maybe 200. It's hard to tell when you're in the mythology part because you don't know how big the ships are. They could be god ships that are. It's all that kind of stuff. The numbers don't make sense yet. It's the who line. Is it anyway? When it comes to numbers, the points don't matter. So anyway, he sailed some ships there. Signy went with Siggeir, right? Because Signy was married to Siggeir, and so she comes running out essentially, and she tells Volsung "Hey, this is a trap. You're all going to die. You have to go. Get in your ships and leave." And Volsung he says, "That's fine. Everybody dies."
Damn.
That's his response. Everybody dies. That's fine.
So he doesn't care.
Well, what he says is that if I leave, I'm going to hurt our family's reputation, and my sons are going to have a terrible life. If this is how we go, this is how we go.
Considering we're talking about a culture filled with stories where people just straight up kill each other, I imagine that if you're like, oh, this is a tribe, you die. It's like, okay,
Yeah, they're just
could happen regardless anyway.
This is part of their memory.
Life.
It's not a faith; it's their worldview,
is.
and their worldview is that, and what we would think of with the tip of Germany, northern tip of Germany in this time period, probably pretty violent. The nature is violent, right? Gorgeous, also violent. Like it's both. And that I really do think that they saw like a beauty in it, and that it's just the way it is. Okay, so they have this huge fight. Volsung ends up falling, he dies, and his sons are then captured. So Signy is freaking out because it's her whole family, so she asked them to be put in stocks instead, right? So like medieval stocks kind of thing. And so they're all put in the stocks. So there's like 9 brothers. No, there's 10 because there's 10 sons. So the 10 brothers are in these stocks in a single line. And every night, you obviously know what's going to happen next. A she-wolf is going to come, and the she-wolf is going to come and eat one brother.
Why's it got to be a she-wolf?
Well,
why can't it be a he-wolf?
Because we think that it is Sigyr's mom.
Oh.
That's what the current thinking is, according to the translator that I was reading. We're not sure.
Damn, that thing's shoving its tongue down its throat, dude.
We'll get there. It's actually really fun. So the she-wolf is eating them. So the she-wolf then eats the brothers for 9 nights, because 9 is the holy number.
It's a long time.
Yes. Well, it's mainly just so they could use the number 9, because 9 is like the holy number in Norse mythology. 9 realms, 9
so
guys
it's like 7 in the Bible.
It's like 7 and 3 in the Bible, right? That kind of thing. And this is just one of those recurring things. We talked about it with the oral tradition in the Iliad. How do you get people to remember stuff? You use these placeholder features. Well, the other way that they remembered things, like these stories, like these sagas, and with so much accuracy, is they used alliterative verse, meaning that they repeated sounds, the first sounds of words, which helps you remember the correct formation of it.
Absolutely. It's still to this day marketed. They use that in marketing all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I love alliteration.
Yep.
Okay, so it's the 10th night, or 10th day, I guess, and Signy has one of her men that work for her put honey all over Sigmund. So then the wolf comes that night, and the wolf starts licking the honey and starts to give him a little bit of like a French kiss, getting some of that honey out of his mouth.
Oh.
Okay. And Sigmund, you guessed it, bites down on the tongue and rips it out, killing the she-wolf.
That's hot.
It's intense. I love it. It's so intense. All right, so taking stock for a second. Volsung is dead. Sigmund and Signy are the only children left alive. Sigmund is now freed because he was able to kill that she-wolf. But he's not safe because he's still in Gotland. Signy helps him get set up in the forest, and they build this underground home for him to live in the forest, in the wild. This part, I think we just need to see, one, that these Vikings are flexible about where they live. They don't mind living in rough situations. 2, we'll talk about this more on the next one when we get into more of how royal politics work and court politics work. But in Beowulf, the idea is, Beowulf's an old English story. That's definitely pulling from some Norse stuff as well. That around your hearth, around your hall and your fire is what we call a circle of light. And that's your protection, right? Your protection is only as strong as those people around you and the light that you can give off. And everything outside in the darkness is just the wildness of the world. And in order to survive, Sigmund goes into the wild and lives under the ground in the forest. He's in it right now. And I think that's important for where these royal lines, how far they will go to survive and to do what needs to be done. Intense. The next series of events are upsetting. Let's just call it what it is.
Culturally speaking, or what?
Yeah. Okay. So Signy was like, oh man, I really need to help him. So she starts sending some of the kids that she's been having with Siggeir to go help Sigmund. And like maybe one of them will even become good enough to help him take revenge, because Sigmund has a right to avenge his father. That's how this Viking society works. We just went over that. It's almost like these sagas are trying to teach us their societal values, right? Because they just had that happen so that you can understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to build back up power to take legal revenge for what has happened to him. Nothing anybody has done is illegal, which is like the interesting part. Like Siggeir's following all the rules too.
Because they're not murdering anyone.
They're not murdering. They're saying it straight up.
Right.
Siggeir should have killed all the kids. The fact that he didn't is his fucking fault. That guy's allowed to take revenge if he can. So she starts sending her kids, and they're kind of babies. They're kids. They're fine. But they don't like doing a lot of hard work. So Sigmund complains, and Signy says, well, just kill him then.
And that's that?
So, yeah, she keeps sending kids to him, and he keeps killing them.
So, kids.
He just keeps killing the kids.
Bye-bye.
His nephews.
Gone.
Just killing them.
Not his idea, in his defense.
No, but he didn't really fight it. But I think that this is, what do we call it? Infanticide, when you kill a baby. You know, the Spartans, we talked about it at the 300.
Oh, yeah.
Exposure, like, very much a thing of this society, like, of this time period in Europe.
There's baby killing in the Bible as well.
Absolutely.
Lots of it, actually.
Unfortunately.
I'm going to go ahead and agree with Kevin on this one.
Yep.
Hot take, quite unfortunate.
Nazis are bad. Killing babies are bad.
Don't kill infants.
Just... Woo!
Here at Battle Buddies, we're just really cutting edge ideas here.
All right. I would say it gets simpler, but it gets weird for a little bit. Now, this next part, I think, is to make Sigmund innocent in the thing that's about to happen to bolster his bloodline. So there is a witch, right? Women have the power. And Signy is sick of these kids being bad. They're not great, right? They're not doing what she wants. And it's probably because of Siggeir's bloodline, because he has a bad bloodline and she has a good one. So her and the witch take each other's forms, right? They morph into one another. A little switcheroo, kind of like a Loki god moment. And the witch goes and stays with the king, and as Signy, so he doesn't know that Signy's gone. Signy goes as the witch to stay with Sigmund, who thinks it's a witch and likes the way this witch looks, and so they sleep together a lot.
No, fuck! I had a feeling this was coming.
So then, I think they spend 3 nights together. So of course, Signy she's pregnant with Sigmund's child.
I have some guesses how their kid's gonna turn out.
Now, I will say that Sigmund does not know that that's going to be his kid, but he does know his sister is pregnant.
Right.
Okay.
They're gonna be like, man, this dude has a really hard time taking tests.
No, because this isn't reality.
Oh.
This is mythology, where closing your bloodline like that is good.
It's good. Oh, it's very good. Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh.
Gross.
So they have a kid. The kid's name is Sinfiotli.
Sinfotli? Sinfotli?
Well, because you call it like a fjord, right? So Fiotli.
Oh, Sinfiotli. Sinfiotli. Yeah.
On my last airplane ride to Hawaii, when I was reviewing my notes, I just sat there muttering Sinfiotli to myself over and over again until I could find a way to say it. Okay. The boy grew up, and wouldn't you know it, he's really good. Really strong. He's not a little big old baby. Sigmund, and so he's staying with Sigmund. Sigmund loves him. He's like, man, this kid he has so much Volsung in him.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
He almost looks like me.
That's what he keeps saying. He's like, I just cannot believe how much Volsung this kid has inside him.
It's uncanny.
It's uncanny. It's like he has no of Siggeir in him. He does stuff like that.
Weird.
This is like a weird little side story on it. They get these like wolf skins, and they turn into wolves, and they kill scores of people as wolf men.
Just cuz?
Well, they like turned into them, and they like take on that aspect. I think this is to show you wild men, that they are different from those inside your society. Like inside your castle, there are rules. In that forest, guys will literally put on a wolf's skin and just have no problem killing you.
Got it.
I think that's kind of what's going on here.
Okay.
They use it as a plot device for fighting and like learning to rely on one another. So Sinfiotli like doesn't call for help when he's supposed to call for help, and Sigmund's like, "You were supposed to call for help. What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm just not old. Like I'm not an old like rundown dude like you. I don't need help." And then Sigmund like bites his throat open.
Damn.
But Odin heals him. Luckily, he takes one of his ravens down and heals him. But it was pretty intense. Sigmund was a little upset that he bit him so hard. But I think that was just to show the youth to not question or to listen to your elders.
Don't ever question your elders, bro.
Fucking rip your throat out.
Ever.
I think if I just watched my elder kill, what did they say, 17 men, that
It's
I would
problematic.
Not, I would not say that you're an old man who can't stand the test of time with me.
Yeah, I would let you do your thing. I'd let you do your thing.
I'd walk away slowly.
You do your thing, dude.
Sinfiotli grows up, right? He's strong, and he tells Sigmund that he would like to help him take revenge on Segir. So they do. They kill so many of the kids in the castle, and they start burning the castle down. They have this epic fight. It's pretty fun. It's like almost funny. Like it reminds me of The Princess Bride a little bit. Like in the castle, they're just like kind of stabbing everybody and wacky shenanigans. So they're lighting it on fire, and Signy then reveals the truth about everything. Sinfiotli's actually your kid, Sigmund, and you need to protect him. Because of that, this whole thing is going away. I clearly have done wrong by making you have a kid with me, so she walks into the fire and kills herself.
Oh, gone. Okay.
Yep.
How does Sigmund feel about all this?
He doesn't seem upset at all. I think he's pretty pumped.
Hmm.
He becomes a king, right? Because now he's conquered Gotland and Hunland. He then has 2 kids. For the kids, in Greek mythology, we have the fates that we talked a little bit about, right? They weave your fate on their spindle, the past, the present, and the future. The Norse have them too. They're called Norns. And the Norns are like scary versions of the fates. And the fates were already kind of scary in the Greek mythology, but these ones are really scary for some reason. But they tell you your fate and what's going to happen. They say that one of his sons, Helgi, is destined to become the greatest king of all. That's what they tell him. So
Helgi?
Helgi's going to become great. And Helgi is like this tremendous kid. He's commanding people by the time he's 15, fighting with Sinfiotli. Well, I mean, let's go back to the fates for a second. We didn't talk about this too much of the Iliad, but prophecy, right? We talk about prophecy a lot in these societies. They love fortune telling and prophecy. And we think a lot about prophecy as, either stupid, but if we knew our prophecy, it would be debilitating, right? If you know you're going to die in this battle, it would be debilitating. And so I was thinking about our conversations talking about this with the Iliad. The prophecy we're talking about from the Iliad is that Achilles is destined to die in the Battle of Troy. In Joseph Campbell's book, The Hero of a Thousand Faces, he talks about when you aren't on your path to become a hero, like when you leave your known path, like you know the path to take, what to do. I think about this with teenagers all the time. Ones that like have skill, like you're smart and like you're not trying and you're obviously off your path right now. Like you even know you're not on your path to where your life should be going. Joseph Campbell has a term for that, and he calls it a tyrant. That when you are not on your path, you are a tyrant to yourself and to everybody around you. And so I think that prophecy is another way of ensuring that you're not a tyrant, right? That you are that cultural version of a hero. You know your fate, but you're following it anyway because that's what you're supposed to do for your part of the journey. What are your thoughts on that?
That's awesome.
It's kind of fun, right?
Oh, that's great. That gives. You mentioned it earlier when the dude was like, "Hey, this is a trap. They're gonna kill you," and he's like, "I don't. That doesn't matter
All
if that's
people
all
die.
part of the grand plan
Yeah.
here."
And they don't even necessarily believe in the grand plan. Just that's what needs to be done because they don't know. They know Odin's always working, but you don't know if Odin's working for you or against you.
Yeah, I'm using grand plan and definitely our lens. To,
Yes,
like,
me too.
But that's how that's
Yes,
the best
how
way
it
I can
sounds.
explain
Yes.
it.
That's how
Yeah.
it would make sense to us.
Mm-hmm.
Is that there's a plan for us, but this is just how it works.
It is what it is.
Yes.
When I think what I'm honestly thinking of is when you told me that just now was The Mandalorian, where he says, "This is the way."
Oh, this is the way. Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It just is.
It's just like a stoic, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be a coward. Important things to know for this part, and this is kind of true for the society in general, is that there are kings. So a king rules over a country or a
Kingdom.
kingdom. But we were talking about how in this real world, in the 500s and 600s, this could be very small, we think,
Mm-hmm.
or very big, potentially. I don't think it's very big. I don't think they could feed that many people, is the thing. There's also, there's sea kings. Sea kings.
Oh, Kings of the Sea?
Kings of the sea.
That's cool.
They're crazy. What a weird idea. They own no land. They own an army.
It's dope.
They are only kings over men. So a king is a king over a land. A sea king is a king over an army.
Almost like a crazy general on steroids.
It is. I imagine that it starts with a raiding group, right? We talked about how raiders probably formed just literally in a bar or in your hall. And then you say, hey, I got a galley, or this guy's going to finance us and give us some axes. And then you form a little group. Well, what happens if that group's really successful for 20 years? I think they're going to give a lot of loyalty to the guy in charge. Maybe even call him king at some point. So then you have sea kings.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Sea kings.
Sea kings. So Helgi kills the great king of Hunding. Who fucking knows where that is? And his sons raise an army for revenge, as is their right. Right? He has the right to conquer people. They have the right to seek revenge. It's all fair game. There's this great battle. Helgi's going to kill like a bunch of the sons. And after he kills a bunch of them, he sees this procession of beautiful women. And they're riding. And one of these beautiful women is named Sigrun. She's the daughter of King Hogni. Helgi goes to her and says, I think we should get married. And she says, I do like you because you're very strong, because I just watched you kill a bunch of people and I liked that. But I'm already kind of betrothed to this other guy, Hodbrod. A dumb name. And he says to her, be of good cheer, princess, Helgi said. We would sooner try our valor than have you marry him. We shall first see which of us overcomes the other. I stake my life on this. Basically, he's saying, I might lose, but I might also kill him. Let's test it out.
Mhm.
That's very similar to some of those Iliad quotes
Absolutely.
before the two officers duke it out.
Absolutely.
A bunch of times we came up to that. I might lose, but let's let the gods decide. Let's put it up in their hands now, and let's just do it. Okay, so he ends up winning. And right before the fight, though, one thing that is fun is this Senna that happens. A Senna is a contest of insults. So I did a little research on this. It is specifically how royalty insult each other before a battle. It's codified. Fucking hilarious.
Wow. Let's hear some good burns. Are we going to hear some good burns?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Sin Fiatli giving the Senna. So this is like the insult contest. And he's giving it to Hodbrod. Such a dumb name.
Hodbrod.
His brother, I believe.
All right,
a
let's
little
hear it.
confusing.
Shit talk. Let's hear it.
This man knew how to speak with kings. When you have fed your pigs and hounds and you meet your wife, say that the Volsungs have come, and King Helgi can be found here in the army if Hodbrod wants to meet him. And it is Helgi's pleasure to fight with distinction while you kiss your bondwoman by the fire.
Burn!
Granmar answered, You are not able to say much of worth or speak of ancient lore, since you lie about noble men. More likely it is that you long nourished yourself on the food of wolves out in the forest and killed your brothers. And it is strange that you dare to come in any army with good men, you who have sucked the blood of many cold corpses.
Dang.
Pretty intense.
Saying that you served with good men, you want to serve with what? Crazy people?
Well, he's saying he's lying about serving with good men.
Okay,
He's saying you've tricked all these good men to fight with you. You are a vampire wolf in the woods, out of society. Sinfiotli replied, which is also a sick burn because he kind of did do that. That's not like a lie. Sinfiotli replied, you probably do not remember clearly now when you were the witch of Varsny and said that you wanted to marry a man and you chose me for the role of husband. And afterward, you were a Valkyrie in Asgard, and all were on the verge of fighting for your sake. I sired 9 wolves on you at Lagos, and I was the father of them all. Basically saying, did you forget that time when you turned into a woman and I had sex with you and had a bunch of kids with you?
And raised all of them, essentially?
It's pretty funny.
That's funny.
Grandma responded, you are a great liar. I do not think you could sire anyone because you were gelded by the giant's daughter of Thrasnus. You are the stepson of King Siggeir, and you lay in the woods with wolves, and all misfortune came to you one on top of the other. You killed your brothers and made for yourself an evil reputation. And then he says, Sinfiotli answered, this last one will do. Do you remember when you were the mare with the stallion Granny, and I rode you at full speed on Bravel? That's the horse that turns into Slipmere.
Is that the fucking that they're doing?
Do you remember that time you were Loki and I totally had sex with you?
As a horse. That's hilarious.
So these are the types of insults they do.
Damn, so they bring up their sex lives and shit in this.
Oh yeah.
That's hilarious.
There in the Viking culture, the homosexuality is complicated because it's like a crime, but it's also not. It's always so complicated. But there is a funny graffiti, a graffito about it that survived through the ages, and it's essentially saying you didn't wipe and then you let him have sex with you. And I was like,
so like you got shit on your dick?
Yeah. I was like, that's a pretty funny graffiti.
Dang.
Like that's a good burn. Whether you're gay or not, that's a funny, objectively funny burn.
We've just been making
nothing's changed.
Thank you. I'm trying to say that people have been making gay jokes forever.
Yes. Okay, Helgi ends up winning this fight. He becomes the king. He then essentially goes away from the story. He'll be in like a different story, but he's out of this saga. But you see how these stories are connected and woven, right? So now this Helgi, if you like the Helgi story, then you could then read the Volsung story to see how Helgi came to power. Now we're moving towards Sigmund. So Sigmund, a little bit older at this point. But they Sinfiotli goes back. He goes back to raiding. He wants to marry somebody, and he wants to marry Borghild, which is Sigmund's wife. He wants to marry somebody that Bjorghild's brother was betrothed to, so he kills that person. It gets a little complicated. Borghild gets really mad, but Sigmund says he's going to pay for the damages because, again, killing somebody's not illegal. Hiding it's illegal. So he's like, I'll just pay for it. But remember, besides getting the price, you could also seek revenge. Both of those are acceptable. So she gives them some wine. She tries to give the wine to Sinfiotli. Clearly it's poison, right? Everybody in that courtroom would know it's poison because she's like, here, Sinfiotli, who killed my brothers, I have special wine for you. And he says, the drink is fouled. And so there's just this funny story. So then Sigmund says, give it to me, and drinks it and is fine. And they're like, oh, interesting. So she pours another glass and gives it over to Sinfiotli. And he's like, no, I'm not drinking your poison wine. So Sigmund takes it and drinks it again. And he's like, it's mixed with treachery. So Sigmund drinks it and it's fine. And then Sinfiotli takes the horn and says, there's poison in this drink. Sigmund answers, filter it through your mustache. Because remember, Germans all had mustaches. Any Viking story where they don't have giant mustaches is horrible in that regard. Big mustaches.
Damn, and it filters out poison. That's pretty
That's
epic.
how powerful they are. But they said the king was quite drunk, and therefore he talked in this way. So anyway, Sinfiotli drinks it and then dies.
And he's gone.
Sigmund, which I think is just a convenient way to kill the person that was born from a brother and sister, because that's confusing long term to your bloodline.
Yeah, we're gonna kill you off.
So we needed him to have this like rise and fall of power, but like also we don't really
And
need you.
we're good. We're done with you.
And it's convenient because it gives us a way to kill or get rid of Borghild, so that Sigmund can now marry somebody else. Hjordis. This is the name that you absolutely, if you only remember one name from all this besides Odin, it's Sigurd. Sigurd is pretty much who the story is all about. So Sigurd is the child of Sigmund and Hjordis. So there's some conflict over Sigmund marrying Hjordis. The battle's going to end up with Sigmund dying. But like a true epic, like in the Iliad, you get to talk before you die sometimes. So he talks about...
Oh, I mean, that's in movies too.
It's awesome.
Yeah, people are on their deathbed like, tell Tiny Tim I won't be coming home for Christmas.
Yep. So I think he essentially puts his hand on Hjordis's belly and is like, "You are with child. You will have my son, and he will be great. He'll be the best of all the men." Which ends up being true. So maybe he figured it out. The interesting part about Sigurd, right, is that his dad is dead. And with Caesar's story, Caesar's commentary on Gaul, we talked a lot about hostages, in that hostages are not how we think of them. I think it's wrong to think of them like modern hostages. Hostages in this time period are largely about maintaining peace. I have 3 sons, and I border with this other kingdom. This other kingdom could fight me at any time, and I really don't want to be caught unaware, so I will give them my son. We'll trade sons. We have 3 anyway, and then I'll raise them as well as I raise my... They're going to raise their own, so it creates a more secure, formalized friendship.
The season of Fargo with Chris Rock, they do this in the beginning of the...
Oh, do they?
Yeah, their gangs trade sons.
Whoa! I'll have to watch that.
Yeah, to maintain peace.
Yeah, I think it's a very elegant way to do it.
Skin in the
It's
game,
skin in the game.
bro. You and I have been coming back
Yes.
to that. People need accountability in some way.
They do. It is a good way to make everybody honest. That's what my dad used to always say.
Yeah.
Let's make everybody honest.
Mm-hmm.
Which I realized my dad saying that, what he's really saying is,
Let's level the playing field.
Well, you have to actually be a liar. Like, you don't get to say, like, I didn't mean to lie. Like, no, you have to actually be a liar.
Yeah, you have to be accountable
Keep
for
me
that.
honest, yep. So he lives with this other family, and the other family, like, loves him, obviously. They treat him like their own son. Hjordis is, like, living with them, too. Or not. Sometimes it's not really that important. But basically, Sigurd grows up without a castle, without a kingdom, but within one, and is going to have motivation to go do something great so that he can get his own kingdom going, right? Much like Siggy had to do in the beginning of this tale. So we see kind of the cyclical nature that you build up wealth, you lose it, somebody has to go get more. Hjordis marries this guy named Alf, who's a king, and Sigurd is a hostage with this guy, Regan. Okay, I'm going to go between Regan and Regan often here, and I'm going to get it wrong for a second, so I'll clarify up top. Regan or Regan, doesn't matter, is a dwarf that Sigurd meets and has him test his family for their loyalty. Come on, Kevin, get it together. Regan is, I'm not sure about Hjordis's husband, if he's cool or not, so he has him do these different tests about, like, treasure and stuff. And everybody ends up, actually for once in the story, being really cool with each other. They end up just being super nice and being like, whatever you want, dude. And they all are just kind of raising this kid through testing the other society. Like, go ask them if you can have your dad's gold. And then
3 men and a baby.
And so then he goes and he's like, can I have my dad's gold? I'm like, sure, you can have your dad's gold. I don't give a fuck. I love you, dude. And so it's kind of cool. We're like, all right, so you're supposed to do it like this. Like, this is more, we're getting away from the mythology into more about how kingdoms operate, more into the politics, and this shit's formalized. Like, you're supposed to, I think, sometimes to test each other and to, like, do this kind of stuff. He asked for a horse, right? That was one of the tests. And they gave him Granny, which is one of the children of Slipnir, one of the fabled horse. They give him, essentially, as far as like the realpolitik, they give him the best horse in the kingdom.
And that's the one that's also the horse that banged someone.
Well, no, Slipnir's dad banged Loki.
Okay. Well, still, same family of horses. It's pretty fucked up horses.
So Regan then tells Sigurd to go take on this guy named Fafnir, or this thing named Fafnir. No, I'm sorry. Regan is not his hostage parents. Regan's a dwarf he meets, of course. Regan was still having him test the Alf, the guy who fostered Sigurd. So all that stuff is still accurate. Kind of. But Regan is a dwarf, and Sigurd is trying to get some money. He's like, I'm trying to start my own kingdom. How can I do this? And Regan's like, hey, you should take on Fafnir. And so he tells him this story. So this is like a weird side story, but it's very weird and interesting, and we should go into it. The story goes that the Aesir are like your main gods, like your Odins, and sometimes Loki, Thor. Loki goes in and out depending on the story. They're traveling, and they find this otter. And Loki's like, it's a dope-ass otter. So he kills it and skins it. Well, the otter wasn't an otter, but a dwarf that changed shape into an otter, obviously. And so the king, Reindmar, calls them in, the Aesir, because apparently he has that authority. And he's like, hey, you fucking killed my kid, who was just pretending to be an otter. So you have to pay. And you have to fill the otter skin that you skinned with gold. I want that whole thing filled with gold. Which is kind of like a fun metric, right? Like, I think it shows the price of a murder. Like, it should be worth as much as the weight of that person, metaphorically. Gold. Yeah, but in gold. And Loki's like, all right, I'll do it. And they also want the outside line with red gold. Loki is like, no problem, dude. So he goes to the sea god, and he gets like a net, and then he catches this dwarf named Andvari, and he asks for the gold. Loki then takes this ring, which is probably where the ring from Lord of the Rings comes from. And it's a cursed ring. And he gets this ring. He gets warned, like, this ring's bad news. Don't give it to him. He's like, I'm Loki. I just like to fuck shit up. So he puts the ring in the otter stuff. And they take it. And I think he warns them, like, by the way, don't ever use this treasure or this ring, because it's going to curse you. So this guy, Fafnir, uses it and ends up getting cursed and becomes evil. Kills his dad.
Oh, like Golem.
Yeah. And then he turns into a dragon.
Dope.
So
that's cooler than Golem.
Yeah. But I think it's both, right? Like, I think the ring corrupts him to be like a golem, and then he turns into the dragon from The Hobbit. Schmaug.
Is this where dragons originate? Where do dragons originate?
Do
we know?
It depends, because like we're talking about worms, like WYV.
Yeah.
Like there's like the wyverns, and then there's dragons, and then it depends a lot on culture.
Yeah, where the fuck did dragons come
Well, in
from?
Christianity, dragons are real.
I know.
St. George legitimately killed a dragon if you follow the stuff literally.
I mean, in the book of Revelation, there's dragons.
Yeah.
So
there are weird stories where there's like some middle-aged towns that are legitimately freaking out to wherever their fealty lies, asking for help because of dragon attacks.
Oh, dude. When I was in Afghanistan, there were tribes in the north that believed in dragons.
And so it's like, I don't know. I think usually in Norse mythology, it's about greed and how the greed corrupts the person. But there is something weird about the dragon worm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's just
it's
interesting.
Fun.
I don't know.
Yeah. Sigurd. I was like, just getting my name's a little confused for a second.
Well, there's a lot going on, yeah.
So Sigurd needs to go kill Fafnir, right? That's what he's been asked to do by this guy, Regan. And he says, well, you got to reforge my sword. Remember that sword they pulled out of the tree? That's from the very beginning of the story from Odin. that sword has survived. It's broken a couple times. It's been kind of reforged.
That's cool.
Kind of like the Lord of the Rings reforging of the sword for Aragorn. The Flame of the West. But he's talking to the dwarves. The dwarves are great blacksmiths. They're the best because they can use like some magic in it. And he wants him to reforge the sword. So the guy does, and he takes the sword and hits it against the anvil, and the sword breaks. And he says, like, it needs to be stronger. And he ends up making the sword so amazingly powerful that when he strikes the anvil, he slices the anvil in half.
Cool.
Yeah, dope. This is also to remind us of our series on the 300, because Thermopylae stuff, armor and weapons technology did not change usually within one generation.
Passed it down.
So you passed it down.
Mhm.
So, these weapons and armors had histories attached
Absolutely.
to them.
Yes.
This isn't just a literary device. This is
It was familial.
yes. And I think it would make you care about it more, make you maybe polish it and sharpen it, right? This is the sword that my great-grandfather used to secure the lands.
We still do it to this day.
Absolutely. But
our grandparents give us things all the time.
yes. I just mean with weapons specifically.
Oh, for sure.
It's changing because weapons go out of fashion. They're outdated as soon as they're produced.
These are not obsolete.
These ones do not go obsolete. Swords will be used for so long,
Mhm.
right? Until very recently. Like the bow and arrow. The bow and arrow was used until so recently.
Mhm.
Was an effective way to fight and defend. Sigurd is going to have a moment where he gets his fortune read to him. So just like we've seen a couple times now, prophecy gets read to these heroes, and these heroes don't shy away from it. And they had like one of those like, you don't want to know, and he's like, I want to know, and then he knows, and he's like, oh man, that was a lot.
I shouldn't
Yeah.
have asked.
Before Sigurd wants to fight Fafnir, he's like, I still got to get some revenge on some people. And so he goes and gets some revenge. And so now Reagan's like, you've been taking a while. I would like you to kill the dragon. And he's like, all right, I'm going to fight this dragon. And all of a sudden, Regan is not very helpful. Regan's just like, just go kill it. And he's like, but it's a giant dragon. Like, what am I supposed to do against it? They're poisonous. Like everything about them's evil. So Sigurd digs a ditch and lays in the ditch. Then Odin comes and says, actually, you should dig a series of ditches. And so he goes and digs a series of ditches. And when the dragon comes slithering through to go to the water, he holds his sword up and it slices the dragon all the way through, and all the blood starts running down the other ditches away from him because the dragon's blood is all poisonous, I guess.
So making a series of dishes, the ditches was there to catch the poisonous
Catch
blood.
the poisonous blood and divert it away from him where he was laying.
Roger that.
Pretty epic scene, right? That's really fun. Like laying
Very
underground
cool.
with your sword, you shove it up and it slices the guy in two.
Very Evil Dead.
Very Evil Dead.
Yeah, it's very fun.
And then it just starts getting crazy. So Sigurd and Regan start talking. They're like almost arguing. It's a little weird. So Sigurd's like, whatever, dude. And he goes and takes Fafnir, which is the dragon, right? He takes the heart and he takes a bite of it.
It's tight.
It's dope. And then all of a sudden he can understand birds.
Word.
Yeah.
He eats some dragon heart and he's like, these birds are speaking straight English right
Yes.
now.
And birds are wild, right? We already talked about how ravens work for Odin. So birds have some kind of like god type quality to them, which I think makes sense because birds have a lot of knowledge about like how to stay safe and like the trends of seasons. So I think that you assigning birds to deities makes sense because you should look at birds to know what things are happening.
It's incredible what different cultures, how they view birds.
Yes.
And
Like if you see a bunch of birds flying away from the forest, I would be like, let's not go there.
Yo, totally.
Right?
Birds will circle prey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it's totally interesting.
A lot of knowledge there that you can, just from watching them, you can get. So they're talking and they're like, I wish this guy could understand us to say that Regan is about to kill him and that he should kill Regan first. And he's like, I can't understand you. Thank goodness I can understand these birds.
I
It's
speak
really
bird
appropriate.
now. The Matrix spoke to me and
Yeah.
I know Kung Fu.
Is exactly what it
Yeah.
is. And so he goes and kills Regan and takes all the treasure from the dragon's hoard. And he goes to Brynhild. So he does that. Now we're entering the transition. So this is like us transitioning from myth into legend. So things are going to start getting more real, and then we'll stop right before the actual transition happens with like the Huns and everything.
That was fun.
So we're going to go to the south of France. The south of France. or the north of France. It's confusing. We go to France.
To get a croissant?
I guess so. Well, it's because we're going to meet the Burgundians eventually.
Oh, that's I remember them from the last podcast
Yeah.
on the left.
The
They're
Burgundians are like a real people.
Oh,
Like-
yes.
Like Attila the Hun is in the story.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, let's go.
So there's a bunch of stuff about armor and how they make it. And he learns from this lady, Brynhild, about runes and magics. Remember, women have magic. Women are magic.
What is the name?
Brynhild.
Is that where Broomhilda comes from?
Yeah, Brynhild.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So he learns from her magic and runes, like Odin did. Because, again, it's a feminine thing and it's disparaging. Like, they'll make fun of you, but also, like, who cares if it gives you
You
power?
want more power because that's how Odin was exactly.
Which is the
yeah.
difference between me as a teenager versus me as an adult. Because me as a teenager, like, don't make fun of me. But me as
Yeah.
an adult, I'm like, functionally, I don't care if
Yeah.
this is what I need.
No, shame is gone.
Yeah.
We're married with children.
Exactly. Like, useless shame. Still feel good shame.
There's a difference.
There's a difference. Okay, so she gives him some advice that we should look at real quick. She says, "Do well by your kinsmen and take little revenge for their wrongdoings. Endure with patience, and you will win long-lasting praise. Beware of ill dealings, both of maid's love and a man's wife. Ill often arises from these. Control your temper with foolish men at crowded gatherings, for they frequent speak worse than they know. When you are called a coward, people may think that you are rightfully named so. Kill the man another day, rewarding him for his malicious words." You can totally read that as she's not talking to Sigurd, she's talking to the Viking listening to the story at the
Mhm.
campfire, right before, they're going to host a nation
Yep.
nearby.
It's supposed to jack you up, right?
Yep. And the difference between cultures, when you get called a coward at the dinner feast, it's not don't kill them. It's don't kill them right then. Because if you kill them right then, it's going to explode. You're going to ruin the whole thing. It's going to be fighting. But that guy does need to pay for it. Just sober up. No crowd.
Handle business.
Do it.
Mhm.
And then pay the cost. Crazy. Like, that little line is just so interesting. It reveals so much about, like, their
Culture.
viewpoint. Yes.
Mhm.
Their ethics and morals. And I think it's clear that a lot of these people had tempers. If, like, every other line is about temper. Interesting. Okay, they become engaged, and he gets new gear, so, like, new weapons and armor and stuff.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Upgrades.
It's nice. It's like gold and shit like that. Now, they ride to Brynhild's sister and her husband. And Sigurd stays with them for a long time. So this is now where he's kind of camped out. He's camped out with these new people. Brynhild ends up weaving a tapestry of Sigurd's story, which is kind of dope. That's one of women's jobs, is to weave. Same with Greek cultures, right?
The
weaving. The techne. Weaving fates, weaving prophecy.
Mhm.
So Sigurd sees that now Brynhild is in a tower. This is where the story gets weird. And I think this is the transition. So this will be where we end, because then the transition actually changes.
She's in a tower.
So they meet, they have this council. She teaches them magic. They are engaged to be married. And they're like kind of married maybe. And then all of a sudden, he's in the kingdom of her sister. And she's in a tower, like, locked away. And I don't know if it's just like a weird part of how the stories come down to us, or what I like to think is that instead they did all that, and then they're like, actually, we didn't have anybody sanction this, so we have to pretend we haven't met each other yet. And so she goes to a tower where she's supposed to be.
Interesting.
And now he gets to play coy, like, hey, I saw this girl in a tower. She was, like, really pretty. And they're like,
I should go save her.
and they're like, oh, her name's Brynhild. And he's like, cool, can I marry her?
Yeah, I should go take care of her
Yeah.
because she's just stuck up there.
What's interesting about Brynhild is, we'll talk more about her next time, but she's a shield maiden, so she's a warrior. She fights. Like, he sees her on the battlefield. And shield maidens are women that just kill. Which we'll talk more about. But the women are... Shield maiden stuff is controversial because it's not clear, but I like to think that they could do anything.
That sounds cool to me. I'm pro Shield Maiden.
pro shield maiden.
Yeah. Women do fight on the battlefield.
Yep.
I've seen it.
You did see it.
So the myths.
Those are the myths.
Those are the myths of we have not finished the Song of Volsung yet.
No, so now like the myth is, the Odin line and then the slaying of the dragon. Those are the two big parts of the myth. Now it goes to Sigurd, and he's going to be in like real locations trying to form real kingdoms against enemies like Attila the Hun.
No kidding.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to start getting into the myth is going to become a reality.
Yes, we're getting closer and closer.
Okay. Well, I learned a lot. That's really interesting. Admittedly, I did not know. I still don't know a lot about Vikings.
Me either.
It's pretty.
It's wacky.
I feel like people are kind of highly. It's just interesting, dude. What like time does to history and how we view it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like Vikings have just become like some silly little mascot on schools now,
right?
And sports teams, and now it's like, what the fuck even is a Viking?
Yeah.
Like what part of the world is that even? And so it's kind of nice for us to kind of dive into that because this does find its way into a lot of different corners of our own culture, and I'm sure whomever is listening to this, their culture as well.
Yeah, we're gonna when we get to the raid of Linden's farm, we're gonna read one of the parts that Children of Ash and Elm makes us listen to and read, because it's the most sobering description of what a raid is that you've ever heard, and you're like, oh,
raids are fucked up.
Oh, okay.
And we should know this.
I get it.
Would you liken raids to like the LA riots after or the Watts riots?
No.
Way worse.
Could not. No, they're not similar at all. Because like the Watts riots had a goal.
Okay. This is just straight up chaos and like
this is economics.
Fucked up.
This is literally their economic system. I meant to say this in the beginning, but I guess it doesn't matter because we're not at the raiding yet. But the raids themselves are how their economic model works, and so they become addicted to it because their internal politics work by gift giving. So I only get friendships are formalized. I can only get your friendship favor, not as if you like me, but if I can give you enough gifts on top of following the rules.
So a raid would completely nullify all the idea of a gift in the beginning because you're just taking it.
No.
You're raiding shit.
That's how I get the gift to begin with.
Oh, God.
So it becomes something that I have to do more and more as these small kingdoms start to merge into bigger ones. So I need more gifts to give to more of these kingdoms.
But those gifts are stolen.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter. Because in our economic model, we come from Ragnarok. We come from this time when the world was destroyed.
Chaos.
So this was a part of how we survived. Unfortunately, it got baked into our ethos. And now we're addicted to it because our whole economic and political model is based on it. And it doesn't get smaller.
Kind of like how our culture is addicted to making money in the ways that we make money.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
Do import, export?
Yeah. Okay. Man, knowledge. Well, thank you, Kevin. This is good so far. How many we're going to do like 3-part on this?
We're doing 3. So the myth, the legend,
and then the battles.
The battle.
Okay. Well, thank you, listeners, for listening to this. Hit us up, dude. Let us know if you're interested in anything or just want to just generally talk to us. We're on Instagram.
Yep.
All the things.
Join our Discord.
Yeah.
Come hang out with me. I'm on it.
Yeah, because you'll see less of us on the Instagrams, but it's not because we're gone. It's because we're working on our episodes.
All the time.
Yep.
So many books.
Lots of reading. Thank you for listening, and until next time,
okay, hey.